zwei, drei.
Wait a minute.
That one's staying in.
All right. Well, I was not going to do this, but we're going to leave that as the start of this podcast. Welcome to the second episode of Paulcast. I wish that was planned. If you watched episode 1, you would find out that my co-host and producer of the podcast over here, Red, is equally as bad as I am at playing pool. Well, if you are here to find out about, you might have saw the thumbnail. And that's why you're here.
Pool tips?
Thought this was pool tips? Then you're wrong.
I have one pool tip.
What's that?
Don't eat before you jump in.
Don't eat. Oh, that. Well done.
Thanks, my friend.
That's nice. That's dad jokes already. Not even a dad. So we had a lot of fun on our first podcast. We were talking about the making of the Castle of the Hill video.
Indeed.
If you've not seen that video, it's on this channel, and you should go check it out.
It's
awesome. Because it was fun. And we had a podcast talking about not only the making of it and the technical side of it, but how much fun and how goofy we got during it, and lots of fun. So be sure to check out that podcast as well if you're interested in watching the rest of it. Part of what we had in that podcast was a bunch of people asking questions.
Yeah.
And some of those questions were, who are those two idiots that thought that they should start a podcast? And, well, while we can't answer that one directly, we can't answer the question is, who is that guy singing and how did he get from where he started out to making a music video in Nashville and touring with a national touring act, Locash, doing solo project stuff and doing those sorts of things. And, man, it's kind of a weird long road, but
always is.
But I've had a lot of fun doing it, and thought, when I was discussing show ideas with you, was kind of like, well, I think we could ramble on this one for a while, because I think a lot of people, whether you're a fan of music or you want to be an artist or play guitar for an act or get into the music business. I'm just going to share my story and my road of where I came from on this podcast. So
there's a lot of good information in there, especially for people starting out.
I'll correct. There's a lot of information.
Yes.
I don't know how much of it's good. It's just my story.
Or how much misinformation.
No, the truth is there's a lot of misinformation out there. Mm-hmm. All I can tell you is what worked for me, what is still working, things that have changed. I think with COVID, things have changed, and we still don't have any answers yet for where it's going to go long term.
No.
But things are turning around. I think we're going to get back to some normal on some stuff with that, hopefully, and get touring back going where it needs to go. And that's what I'm gonna dive on into here. And I think while you're hitting your next shot,
I
since
think
I didn't
do a break
get to actually break. Do I automatically lose because I didn't hit a ball when I tried to break?
You lose social standing.
Oh yeah, that's gone. That's gone as soon as I pick up the cue stick. So a lot of people, want to know where you get your initial start. For me, it was in church, and I was, right around 5 years old. I was starting to sing in choirs and stuff, and was loud and obnoxious, and they let me have solos, which allowed me to be even more loud and obnoxious on a solo level. And then I was able to take that and got an interest in guitar. And, right around 7th or 8th grade, I started to take guitar lessons from Contemporary Music Center in Chantilly, Virginia. That's where I'm from.
Indeed.
I'm from Virginia. And
me too.
So you're from Virginia as well, aren't you?
Born in Fairfax Hospital.
Imagine that. And I think the local mom and pop shops are going to have a chance to really resurge during this time. I think that they're going to be able to really get more exposure, because they've had to come up with new ways to do things.
True.
Getting online, with their having the virtual lessons, the Zoom lessons, and all that sort of stuff. So they've got a chance to sort of reconnect.
Totally.
Speaking of reconnect, I have a
Yes.
really cool story with that. So again, I started out with this small little strip mall music store
Yes.
that I went to, and Danny Leonard was my guitar teacher, and a guy named Menzie Pittman owned the store,
Okay.
and still owns it. Now they've branched out; they got bigger stores, a performance hall, all kinds of great stuff.
That's awesome.
But they supported the local high school that I went to and all that. So I go out to this trade show every year called NAMM. All
Yes.
right? Which if you're in the music community, you already know what I'm talking about. Those of you that aren't in the music community, it's the largest
Guitar
musical dealer show in the world.
I guess that's what it is. It's more of like a trade expo kind of thing.
And so, this is held out in Orange County, California, and literally people come from all over the world. And there is every instrument, every manufacturer that you could think of is out there, right?
Yeah.
And so I play Paul Reed Smith guitars and endorse
Imagine
them.
that,
Yeah,
Paul.
you might have seen that, around. And so I was out there visiting my wonderful PRS family out there, and while I'm hanging out around the stage out there and with all those guys, this guy walks up to me. And it's Menzie Pittman, the guy who introduced me to music lessons as a young kid. And I hadn't seen him in so many years. And he was out there because he is one of the top ranked now mom and pop. I call it that. Maybe I don't know if that's the right term.
I would say brick and mortar. Is
Independently owned, whatever you want to call it, music stores. That he's set so many templates for what music stores can do in their local community to help the local community and to influence the arts in the local communities.
Which is
huge. It was so wild because it hadn't been there, that long when I started going, and to know that that it just started. Literally, it was next to a place called the Hair Cuttery, and I would go get my hair cut. And then I would go to music lessons. Or my mom would take me, and she would, my mom would go and get her hair cut and drop me off at my music lesson. And then we'd meet up afterwards. It was that kind of deal. So
well, and we know that your mom takes the exact amount of time that a guitar lesson does, because every single time it's a perm. Every time.
I don't even. Do they still do those perms? Is that what you've got going on? That was another question that we had in our comments: is Red's hair real?
It is.
And how do you get it to do that?
Well, what you do is very simple. All you have to do is go to sleep. You then wake up. Right? It's very simple. Right? You got those 2 steps so far?
Sleep, wake up.
Sleep, wake up. That's the end of the process.
The funny thing is, that was going to be my guess. It's exactly what it looks like. But
I moisturize a little bit.
With what? Coconut oil or something?
Well, it's not my hair, but I do moisturize.
Okay. Anyway, so I'm going to get back to the story here.
You do what you want to, buddy.
And I do want to. I want people to know that if you don't like stories, you're in the wrong place. I'm a storyteller. My dad was a storyteller, and part of being a writer in Nashville is being a storyteller as well. So I would before I get onto this story, my ADD's kicking in here. I would like to tell everyone that neither one of us have hit a ball in yet. Is that true?
I just did my Charlie Brown walk back to the microphone and then hit the microphone because I'm stupid. But I think the Charlie Brown walk was deserved of that awful shot that I just did.
I've got one I'm going to take here real quick because this is a make it shot. Watch.
He's going to make this one. Watch. It's going to happen. Oh!
Choked again. Anyway, back to the story.
I hope that no one who plays pool watches this.
Oh, I'm sure only pool. You know what's funny is I actually tagged people and you put hashtags and
Right.
stuff. Talking about the last podcast. Hey, go see the podcast.
Yeah.
Whatever. And I actually put hashtags of like billiards. I wanted all these like professional billiard players to like go,
yeah.
oh wow, this looks interesting. This is a pool podcast.
Such
I want
a
to
bait
watch
and
this.
switch.
And as soon as they see today's, it's going to be fantastic. I mean, I'm
Dude,
pretty
I
much
hope that
we're
we
going to get
get-
offers to come be at pool competitions.
Just out of pity, they're gonna be like, guys, look,
We'll go perform there. I don't know if we're going to play any pool.
if you come play and make a video here, then we'll give you some lessons.
Brunswick
Maybe
Brunswick will not be sponsoring us anytime
That's
soon.
bowling.
Yeah. Oh, well. Who makes the pool tables? Is that my
Pool table manufacturers.
Is that my Jessica Simpson moment right there?
Yeah.
That's my chicken of the sea or tuna of the sea. Or
Oh
whatever
my
it was.
god! Okay, that's a good one. The newer updated version of that is, I think it's Kylie Jenner. It's one of the Jenners. Chris walks in with a baby like pig, and she goes, "I have a surprise for you," or whatever she says. And then Kylie comes down the stairs and she goes, "Oh my god, is that a chicken?" And it's a pig. Like, it's totally like not even close. IQ the size
chig.
of a
We call it a
pistachio.
chig.
A chig.
Chig. It's a chig. Handheld pet. Anyway, so we have lost everyone at this point, but that's okay. So started taking guitar, and then did you make a ball in? Thank goodness somebody got it going. You get to go again.
Yeah, I had to celebrate first.
So what do you do when you pick up a guitar? You learn a few things, and then, of course, you start a rock band. Well, like I said, I grew up in church singing, so a lot of my friends were at church and that sort of thing at 8th grade at that point still. And at that point, it made sense for us to start our rock band.
Mm-hmm.
And
In the garage, of course.
me and a few of my buddies, Mike Nostidi and John Kelly, and we had some other guests that went in and out.
There's a couple of people.
Yeah, but we were the main three, and we didn't have enough PA gear, so we actually snuck into our church and borrowed gear to use for our
Something
sound
tells
system
me they
there.
didn't mind
Well, you know,
until they found out.
until they found out. So, but no, it was great because we actually gave my first ever real cover band rock star performance.
Whew.
Was in the youth hall at my church.
Yes.
And we played Guns N' Roses,
Of
Sweet
course.
Child of Mine,
Oof.
and it was great
difficult
because all these little 8th grade girls were just going crazy.
Oh, crazy,
And
yeah.
that's actually what made me go, I think I want to be a rock star.
Yes.
You know, because that's what you do at churches. And it was a church. It was called a lock-in. I don't know if they do these anymore.
They do. They've changed the name.
Yeah.
To
It's
update
a
with
church sleepover.
Yes.
You know, so I'm not sure how they ever got that approved. But anyway, we had a youth church sleepover.
Separate sides
and
of the building.
our band got to play for that. And that was, it was a lot of fun.
So
So,
good. Tell me, I really,
Yeah.
I have one serious question about this particular
boy.
event. Did you wear the Joey Buttafuoco pants?
you know, I've gone through many stages in pants.
Yes.
Some ripped, some not.
Some
Blousy.
not.
That's the only word I can think of.
For Joey Buttafuoco pants?
Yeah.
Yeah, blousy is a good way of
I don't
putting
even
it.
know. I don't even know that I've ever said that word in my life until just now.
Just
the word blousy
blousy?
came out thinking about those pants.
I mean,
So
you have a wife. You would
um,
think that would come up occasionally.
that's such a
Well, she dresses herself, and you
Yeah.
occasionally.
yes. So yeah, I don't know. I've had a lot of crazy pants. It's part of being a rock, almost rock star when you think you are, but you're not in high school. But so went on to do that. I decided and then a really big part of my life was doing choirs in high school and that sort of
Right.
thing too. And we were in a really cool traveling group that went all over the country. So got to get my travel itch for music kind of going through that sort of thing. They were competitions, so we were very competitive in a lot of what we did there too. So now I've got 3 different influences. I've got a church influence. I've got my guitar lesson influence. I've got my choir influences going, and like I'm falling in love with music, and it's just becoming what I want to do every day. And so then I started taking voice lessons from a guy named Russ Penny, and that was really funny. The first lesson that I came into, I'd only ever done, pretty much whatever music we were doing in school for that time, or whatever I wanted to play with my rock band. Yeah. And then my influences at home, which we are going to have an episode on just on influences. Yes. Musical influences, film influence, and that's going to be cool. So I won't dive into like who my influences were much right now.
Stay tuned till next week.
And stay tuned. But I will say I have an older brother and an older sister. Yes. And I was the oops child in my family. Yes, you were. They are 10 and 12 years respectively older than me. So I had some earlier influences from them, and then my sister married this guy who you might know. And my brother-in-law was a heavy influence on my music as well, and he was a little bit older than she was as well. And so I had some deep-rooted stuff that went back a little ways, kind of the heart of rock and roll as it was coming up had a bigger influence on me than most of the kids my age.
Huey Lewis was a great band.
Huey Lewis was fantastic, yes.
Heart of rock and roll.
I love Huey Lewis, all right? If you don't like Huey Lewis, you can turn this episode off right now. Wasn't even who I was going to say, but maybe they'll be on our influences episode.
Hey, they definitely are for me.
I may or may not have had a cassette tape. If anyone's ever heard of those, that was by Huey Lewis.
8 tracks only.
Oh yeah. So, but anyway, all of those different influences from whether it was my family or school or rock bands, then comes along this opportunity to take voice lessons, and this is about my senior year, somewhere in that time frame, and he introduced to me the idea of taking classical music lessons.
Oh, no.
Now, you've played some guitar and some bass and those sorts of things. Did you experience any differences between playing the classical stuff that was in the books versus what you wanted to play and learn yourself?
Well, a little bit. Here's the thing. Honestly, I feel like that's more of a vocal thing because the technique is so hugely different between Broadway and, like, commercial music. Huh?
Am I stripes or something?
You are stripes because I got in a solid.
Okay, keep going.
Indeed. But that's the thing. Like, when you have like an operatic type trained voice, and I've dated some people who have gone to school for that specifically, and they've tried to teach me how to do some of that, and it's not good. I do terribly. Camera one. But with guitar, I find that it's it's the same thing, just played very differently. That's my personal opinion. I guess that's kind of the way that works.
Part of the reason I brought that up is they are different. Obviously, they're very different, and the takes are different.
Incredibly different.
And people, the artistic people around those different communities are different. Jazz people hang out with jazz people. Country people hang out with country people.
The influences are very different.
Yeah, and in classical, I really had no exposure to that. And one of the very first things that he had me do, I came in with it was a green. He used to always make fun of me. He still makes fun of me to this day about it. So we keep in touch a little bit. And I walked in with this John Deere trucker hat on, to my first voice lesson. I didn't know he was a classical teacher necessarily. And he just kind of sized me up a little bit. And I walk in from my day at school with my trucker hat on, getting ready to.
Also,
I'm here to take these voice lessons. You ready to go?
You're growing up 15 minutes outside of Washington, D.C., and you wore a trucker hat to school. All I want to know is how did you not get pummeled every
Because
day of the
we
week?
were in Chantilly, Virginia,
Yeah, I
which
said outside
was
of
in
DC.
the suburbs of D.C., and everybody wore trucker hats and drove pickup trucks to school. Except for me, I did not have a pickup truck. I had my brother-in-law's leftover 87 Chevy Impala that was his mother's, her leftover.
Right.
That the people would ask you, what color's your car, so they could like meet me out at my car, and I would say, well, it's the rust-colored car. There was no original paint left on that thing, and it took two people to start it. This is no joke. One person
Didn't it
had
take
to
two
hold.
people to turn it too?
No,
Wasn't there a void of power steering?
No, it just didn't. This one had power steering.
Okay, that's
it
good.
Somebody had to hold the catalytic converter open while somebody else started it, and the speedometer didn't work, which I found out very quickly. And my stripes are solid.
Your stripes.
Again?
Yeah.
Still?
Yeah, that's how it works. It doesn't change mid-round.
Can't pick which one I want to be.
Not in this game, my friend.
Anyway, this is a road to Nashville. This is what people are asking about. I'm trying to answer this question.
This is the road to Nashville. This is.
I
what
guess
it is.
my
It's
Chevy
perilous
Impala was part of it. You
and
know, I did write a
long.
song with a guy named Justin Spears, who's a country artist as well, and we called it Vinyl in the Backseat. I know that's a terrible song title, but the song was actually a lot of fun, and it was about riding around in a Chevy Impala that had vinyl seats and just having a good time. So it was a party song about my Chevy Impala, so you can make fun of it all you want.
I'm not making
It
fun
was
of
a great vehicle, and it
it's a
served
great
me
time.
well without its speedometer working.
Hey, my Buick was a
Back
piece
to
of
my
crap.
trucker hat. So I wear this into this voice lesson, and he starts throwing down these Italian operas at me. And first of all, I didn't know any Italian. He was okay with that. I had never heard any opera. I'd done some classical music in choirs and stuff in
Right.
school and church, that sort of way. But I mean, that was not primarily what I was
The focus.
in,
Yeah.
you know. And so I really didn't. I was ready to quit after the first lesson because I was like, this guy, I don't know what is this, you know. He was like, well, will you stick with it if I tell you that it's going to increase your range and your breath support and help you sing your rock music better? I said, well, I will do this if you'll support me doing my rock band stuff.
Right.
I will, and you can help me with that. Then I will try out your techniques. And I knew that there had been, you know, several famous singers, even pop singers like Mariah Carey. She just came to mind, you know, who had done classical training.
Right.
And obviously, you know, voice of the, you know, millennium kind of voice. And I was like, well,
Totally.
all right, we'll see what this can do. And you know, so started doing it, and then it started working. And I didn't read music at the time. I read for guitar. I read what's called tablature, where you just which is basically paint by number for your
Yes.
hands on a fretboard.
Yeah.
And but real music, I hadn't really gotten into reading too much of that yet. And I didn't know anything about the opera community, or that there was an opera community or a classical opportunity. I was very removed from all of that. So I just learned it all by listening.
Yeah.
You know, he'd play the notes for me, and then I'd go home and listen to a record of some Italian dude that I couldn't pronounce the name of, and I would just slow it down. This is what was really funny. So there's been these devices that companies like Tascam and others have made for
Right.
years where you could take your music and slow it down so that you could learn the notes for
Yeah.
a riff. Well, I would take this opera stuff and put it into the same machine and try and slow it down. So O Sole Mio would be O Sole Mio, so that I could like learn how to even move the muscles in my face.
That's kind of smart, though.
To sound like these guys. Well, I think what helped me have success early on in classical music is that I didn't know anything about it.
Right.
So it was a
bad habits trained
completely
already.
yeah, and I didn't know that like a high C was a big deal. You
Right.
grow up listening to like, you know, my sister would play a Journey album or something,
Yeah.
and Steve Perry's singing. You just as a kid, I'm just like, I gotta buckle up a little bit to sing that song, but
clinch and try that one real fast.
But those are the notes in the song.
Right.
I didn't know that there were any other choices,
or
that you would do it any different. You just had to, muster up whatever it took until you could sing what he was singing. So the same thing with the opera stuff. I didn't know that those notes were necessarily hard or difficult or went with a certain voice type or whatever. He put the music in front of him. I was like, all right, guess I better belt that one out. Let's try this approach. And I think probably the biggest lesson that I learned from that was that failure had to be okay.
Yeah.
And because if I would have had any fear of failing in learning a unique art of classical voice styles and voicing and opera and that sort of thing, if I'd have been afraid of it, I'd have never had any success in it.
Right.
And I probably wouldn't have expanded my own vocal range or gotten anything out of the lessons if fear would have been something that I would have allowed to take over for me during those formative years, if you will. So since I had kind of that no fear approach, I came into a lesson one day and he was like, "Hey, I want you to go do this audition." I'm like, "Okay, what's it for?" And I thought, maybe some vocal competition, win some money. I thought that was cool. I go sing, win some money.
Yeah, like vocal Karate Kid.
It's kind of like what it was, I was a lover, not a fighter, so I used my voice to fight for my money. That wasn't good. But so
Don Giovanni with boxing gloves.
That's right. It's an opera. Have you ever heard of that?
Yes.
I'd never heard of that. But
I'm a big fan of Mozart.
I learned about it, dude. I didn't even know. You want to know what Amadeus meant to me? I knew Amadeus before I knew Mozart because
Amadeus.
Rock me, Amadeus. I knew that before I knew any Mozart. Just what it was.
Hey, they're Austrian. It makes sense.
Yeah, not really. Okay. But so then, I went and did this audition. It was for the Washington Opera Company, and you're supposed to have like 2 or 3 songs learned. I'd only had one song learned at the time. They're called arias in opera.
He must have really trusted you to just send you to that audition.
Either that or he was trying to get rid of me and figured if he goes and fails this miserably, maybe I won't have to deal with this kid anymore, right? So I go and do the audition. I sing the song, and they say, "All right, what else would you like to sing?" I'm like, I was straight up honest with them. I did not talk. There's a certain talk, I guess, with each genres or whatever.
Right.
Country guys kind of, well, what you thinking about writing today? One of those things. And then in classical, it's kind of like, they're like, well, I have prepared the following piece for you today. Let me center myself. And then I become this magical person in this score, right?
Yeah.
I didn't have any of that swagger. I had no swagger. I was like, "Hi, I'm Paul. My voice teacher told me to come here.
I just learned drills last week.
I don't even. Yeah, let's. You start playing the piano. I'm good. All right, here we go." And then I would sing it, and then sang the aria or whatever. And it was, I do remember which one that was. It was from the opera La Bohème and the aria is called Che gelida manina. You can look it up online somewhere. Not me singing it, but you can look up the opera
look at the actual version of that. Yeah.
I have a recording of it somewhere. I should put that up one day.
That'd
just
be
for
fun.
Just for people to ridicule me. I mean, see what it's like. So from where it's coming, support. That's the word we're looking for. And but anyway, so from there, so they asked me. They're like, "Do you have another song you want to sing or something?" And I was like, "No, I pretty much that's the only one I've learned so far." And you see them all kind of look at each other like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
He's got no swagger. But he just sang that the way that it's, it's supposed to be done, I guess, because that's what I was taught. And he really was and is an awesome teacher. And so I'm way more credit to him on teaching me the way to do it than me understanding it
Yeah.
at all. I was the vehicle. That was it. So they said, all right, come on up here. So I walk up to the table, and they give me a contract for 2 years with the Washington Opera Company to sing with them. I was like, huh. Well, that certainly beats working at Pizza Hut.
Yeah, right?
Because that was the last real job I had was Pizza Hut delivery, and I was making people's pizzas. And I hope that no one holds this part against me, but like when I was making pizzas, we get really rushed in the weeds, right?
Yes.
And
Oh
so
my gosh.
we get phone. You know, I'm taking orders up front while I'm like saucing back here. Well, maybe not quite that close, but I'm taking an order. And I'd run back, have to make a pizza because somebody didn't show up for work because basically it's all 14 through 17-year-old people working in there.
Showing up late or just not
Or
showing
not
up
at all.
is basically the standard. If you show up, you get raises. That's how that works.
Right. Well, for me, I got free pizza.
That's
I
pretty
learned
good.
that pretty early on.
Yes.
If you worked a shift at Pizza Hut delivery, you got to have a pizza for each shift that you work.
Hey, that's a cheap date.
So I was like, if I work 4 days a week, I get 4 free pizzas. Then I learned a really cool trick.
Yeah.
The coolest trick here was if you mess up a pizza towards the end of the shift. So say I'm done at 11,
Right.
and if I mess up a pizza at 10, oh man, I put the wrong toppings on that.
Darn.
That's supposed to be pepperoni only. It's got pepperoni and onions and jalapeno and some bacon bits on it. Those are all things I like.
3 toppings off.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
man.
I don't know how I got so off. I'm so sorry. Well, those pies, I'll just go up on top in the
Yes.
stay warm area.
Yes.
And then if there's any mess ups at the end of the night, you don't want to mess up a pizza like at 5 o'clock at night.
No.
You got to wait till the end of the night and just you've had such a long, hard shift that your brain just doesn't work and you accidentally mess up 3 or 4 pies. And they end up there at the top, and then you get to take home whatever pies are messed up. So
that's like currency
I
in
had
high
beat
school.
the whole system.
That's like
my
prison.
friends would wait out for me in the parking lot to be done at night.
Yeah.
They're like, all right, what do y'all want tonight? Well, I can't give you just straight up pepperoni because pepperoni I'll get caught.
Right.
See, pepperoni's like that's a normal pizza.
Right.
What other topping besides pepperoni do you want? You don't even have to eat it. You can pick it off.
Yeah.
But at least got to put it on one side so I can mess up this pizza for you. And then we're good. So anyway, this was the first legit job.
So Pizza Hut corporate, if you're listening, this is where 15 pies went missing in 1983.
That's right. That's why you made no profit on Lee Highway, Route 50, Chantilly, Virginia. Pizza Hut delivery and takeout.
Stock plummeted that year.
Yeah, that's right. But so this was the first time that I'd ever gotten offered really good money for singing.
Yeah.
And it was so weird to me because it was so foreign to me.
Right.
I literally had learned one song
Yeah.
in this genre of music and getting paid extremely well for that, especially at the age that I was at. I was 18. I was just coming out or I just graduated. It was kind of that summer after senior year that I did this audition, and so I decided not to go to college. I decided to do the 2 years, do the opera company, check this thing out, make some money.
Well, you had a contract too.
And and I was like, I don't know nothing about this, but I'm gonna get paid to sing. This sounds like a winner deal here.
Yeah.
You know, and I had a little bit of that nervousness about going away from home. You know, leaving for college. So it also kind of helped me make up my mind.
It was a good transition.
Yeah,
period.
yeah. So I did go to community college, took a few classes while I was doing the opera stuff at night and all of that. But did it for 2 years, made some good money, and then finally decided, you know what? I've learned a lot over these 2 years. I'm gonna put down the guitar, which I had pretty much done at that point. Put down the rock music at that point. Even though we won Battle of the Bands in my senior year.
That's pretty good.
That was fun.
That's like cachet for girls for like what? Another 5 years in high
Hours,
school?
yes, literally hours.
literally
You're cool
5 hours.
for literally hours.
Well, until you turn 21, then you get the cachet back.
No, I didn't because I went into opera and
Never mind, you got the tight pants, and that was it.
I
That was
lost
the
all
end of your
coolness,
cachet.
but I was making money, and I was wearing a tuxedo more than I was jeans, and other
At least it wasn't
costuming. Yeah. So, how do you take a somewhat country? I want to be real on these things. We didn't live out in the sticks, but I also wasn't a city boy. We were kind of like in between, kind of suburban country.
Yeah,
I would say is how I grew up.
That's a good way of putting it.
And how do you take somebody that grows up that way, stick them in a classical art they've never been a part of for 2 years, and then I didn't really know what to do. So I decided, you know what? I think I might want to try this out for real.
Yeah.
And so auditioned for a few schools and ended up at Temple University up in Philadelphia. It was a good in-between. That's where my girlfriend was at the time. It all just sort of made sense to be in that area in Philadelphia. And so finished out my music career, or my music schooling, I should say,
right
up there. How does any of this have to do with the road to Nashville and all of that, though, and country music business, pop music business, that sort of thing? How did I get here from that? Well, I very quickly learned that while I was in college, everybody who was into the classical music and the opera music really went there because they had a passion for it.
Right.
One of the people that I can relate to, sort of growing up as a sports star, was Bo Jackson.
Okay.
You don't even know who that is.
No, I know who Bo Jackson is. I just don't know how you relate to him necessarily.
Well, I love it. Man, the questions just seem to come out on their own sometimes. For those of you that don't know how I relate to Bo Jackson, I mean, truly our physical form
is almost identical.
Way, shape, or form. I am built very much like a football player.
Refrigerator shaped is what he means.
I am the fastest one
to the refrigerator.
Yeah. And definitely not on the field. So what I was going to say, daggone it. He was a dual athlete. So he played baseball and football.
Right.
He was great at both of them.
Which is rare.
Which is really rare. And Deion Sanders was kind of great at both baseball and football as well. But Bo Jackson just was like awesome at both. And really neither sport had seen anything like him. So he was, even though he enjoyed it and did it, he was troubled into like, which do I do? Which is my my passion? So he eventually ended up with football, I believe, being the thing that he did the most. But to make that parallel, which is probably not a great one, but I could do opera at the highest level that there was, and that's not a thing on me. It's just that
it's not an easy accomplishment.
I learned the fundamentals of it,
right,
and then was able to do it at a high level both before college, and I think doing it before college really helped me do it in college.
Yeah.
Because while a lot of my classmates as an undergrad were kind of figuring out what opera was and how to do it for the first time, and even our doctoral students, they're learning it so that they can go do it as their career. I'd already done it for 2 years as a career at arguably one of the highest level places there was in the country,
For sure.
And so it made sense to me.
Yeah.
It was kind of easy. So I was able to do some things in college with it and do some shows, within the college and with the symphony, Philadelphia Philharmonic and stuff like that. And it just kind of came easy to me.
Yeah.
But I wasn't passionate about it.
Right.
And that's what kind of sums this whole thing up, honestly, is that I had to make a choice. My senior year in college, was I going to do what I could do,
right,
or do what I wanted to do,
right? And
that's a tough choice sometimes, because sometimes it's not always right to do what you want to do.
Yeah, sometimes you're so good at something that lucratively you cannot turn that down.
Right,
you have to just do that.
And so I was really troubled with that, and it came clear to me when in my senior year that I had decided, I lived in a little apartment outside of Philadelphia, and I had decided to turn my little apartment, little one-bedroom apartment, into where my bedroom was a recording studio. I took the mattress and box spring and turned them into 2 edges and made like my vocal booth out of that. Blacked out my windows, put foam and cardboard and everything over the windows, and set up all my gear. I had gotten back into guitar my senior year. I had bought my first real recording equipment, mics and stuff my senior year, and computer. Taught myself Pro Tools and all this sort of stuff. And I would come home either after practice or a show and stay up till 3 or 4 in the morning writing country and rock songs.
Right.
And because I was like, I gotta scratch this itch. Yes, I'm having success here, but I'm not doing what I'm passionate about. Right. So I started to do a little bit of that, and then a lot more of it. And then I found myself wanting to do that more than the shows and the practices and the things I was there for.
Once you scratch the itch, you can't come back. Because like, I mean, for me, like when I was in film school, like I had this lofty. Nice. This lofty idea of like, I'm going to make this insanely cool, thriller with all these twists and turns and all that stuff. And then if you go to my YouTube channel, you can see what I ended up with. And then I finally kind of came to this realization of like, oh my gosh, like I'm not being truthful to what my original thought was for this. I'm not being truthful to what I'm learning. Like what I need to do is buckle down and try and take what is my passion and what is my like technique and put that into an actual thought, into an actual palpable idea. And when I did that, I was able to graduate top of my class at film school, which is something that at that particular college was quite rare. Most people barely graduated that school. So it was nice to, have a round of applause.
Did you use palpable in your final words of dissertation or whatever? That might have been what got you top of your class.
See, okay, a lot of my childhood was spent reading the dictionary and thusly the thesaurus afterwards.
Right.
Which is why I use the word thusly in modern English,
Which dinosaur is that again?
Me.
I meant the thesaurus. Yeah, okay. Anyway. So following your passion has a lot to do with your choice. So when I graduated, got my degree in opera, a vocal performance
major. I
touched
it twice.
Did you? Okay. With a degree in opera, where do I go now? Well, the answer was I don't go anywhere. I go back home. And that was a really hard choice because I went and did some auditions to where I thought I wanted to go in New York, Juilliard, Manhattan School of Music, things like that. And it wasn't until after I'd done those auditions that I realized that those auditions put me back feeling the same way I felt when I was a senior in high school doing my very first opera audition, when I was like, I just spent 5 years doing something I don't fit in.
Yeah.
And I tried so hard to fit in that box, and I just, even though I could physically do it, sonically do it, I just didn't fit in with doing somebody else's repertoire that was, that I was unfamiliar with. Being 5 to 10 characters, the same 5 to 10 characters for the rest of my life, making a career out of that. And I really I struggled with languages in college. When you have to learn German, French, and Italian, and Russian, and all of these things, it was hard for me.
No,
easy for me to reproduce the sound. Hard for me to understand what the heck anybody's saying.
Yeah.
And I always just felt out of place. I felt out of place in the language. I felt out of place in the community. I felt out of place in doing it. And I was like,
well, and I bet like as a character too, like it was hard to stay in character when you had no conceivable idea of what you were even passionate about as a character.
Well, fortunately, I'm full of crap most of the time. No, I'm just kidding. A lot of people would agree with that. I'm able to fake it till I make it kind of thing. So I was able to get through that. No, in all seriousness, we would actually have coaches that would work with us on translating and telling us what was going on and how to interpret phrasing in other languages, and to think, look at that shot. That's the best shot we've had in 2 podcasts. And so I was able to kind of fake my way through that because there's so many people around to help you get through those sort of transitions. So anyway, I went back home and didn't really know what I was going to do until my old high school director, Tony Aversano, who became one of my best friends in music and just music and life. And I went back and I ended up being a DJ for him for a while. He had a DJ company in addition to being my choir director, but then he also retired, and I was able to come in and right out of college go be a choral director for 2 years at Chantilly High School, and then 1 year, 1 year at Westfield High School. So taught 3 years in total of high school choir. And what the short answer to that lesson is, the more I taught those kids, the more they kept asking me, why aren't you going chasing your dream?
Yeah.
And American Idol was in full swing and all of that and everything.
Right.
And Nashville Star was a show and that sort of thing.
Wow.
So I actually auditioned for that and got to a regional final and got a little tape, but I didn't know what I was doing there. So again, another thing, I don't know what I'm doing. So then started to make some trips to LA with some songwriters I knew out there and that sort of thing. And they invited me, guy named Jason Plume invited me to come on and write with him some in Nashville. And then that's when I really got the taste of Nashville. Now, the funny thing about that is my guidance counselor my senior year of high school said, you really ought to go to school in Nashville. They've got a great music scene down there. If I'd only listened, I could have saved myself about 7 or 8 years off of my music career here. But I've never been one to listen too well.
Sometimes you have to
hard-headed, hard as this cue stick is. And so then I started coming here. Then I started writing, and then I started making some demos, and then getting, more in touch with the community that was here.
Right.
And as I did that, I started to learn that as much as you can think that it's people that are going to do something for you in your career, it really has to be what you're passionate about.
Yeah.
And it really has to be the relationships that you make with people that make a big difference.
Totally.
I came here thinking, well, I'm this singer. Like, I can sing, whatever I need to sing. I'm going to go be a demo singer for a little bit. That'll pay some bills.
Right.
And I'm just going to land some record deal.
Yeah.
And, that did not happen.
Rarely does, unfortunately.
Yeah. It takes, the whole rule of thumb is it takes 5 to 7 years for anybody to figure out
that you're
what
human.
what their career is going to be like in Nashville. It's a 5 to 7 year town, and it took me longer than that
sometimes
to get through that transition, but because I was coming from in and out of town.
Right.
So I count my first few years as being here, but I really wasn't. I was still traveling between Virginia and Nashville.
Still formative for Nashville.
Yeah.
Because that's
even
different beast.
Even if I couldn't, I had a friend tell me, if you can't move here, pretend you're here.
Yeah.
So be here so often that people think you actually are here.
Right.
Because if there's, I could give a bunch of tips, but if there's a good tip to get you, if you're not in Nashville, you need to move to a major music city. So at least a city that will support whatever kind of music it is that you do.
Right.
And at the time, Nashville it was really cool because I started to sing in studios. I was writing with a lot of different writers. And finally, for the first time, I felt musically alive in probably 7 years, you know. And I picked up the guitar again. And I was nervous to pick up the guitar again because I'd left it for about 5 years.
Right.
And I was like, Nashville's known for its guitar players. I haven't played in 5 years. I'm going to pick up guitar again. But I did, and then just devoted a ton of time to that. Why? Because I was passionate about it.
Right.
Other reason, it's a tool for writing. It's a tool for all of that.
Totally.
And I learned that.
It's the only reason I learned.
Well, and I learned, and kind of what you've learned too in making some tracks is that we all kind of have this dream of like, oh, I want to be a star, I want to be a singer or whatever, and you just somehow think that somebody's gonna swoop you up and do all this magical stuff for you. And it doesn't. The real reality, the real tip behind the scenes of all of this is no one's going to do anything for you.
No. It's make 10,000 tracks so that one is good enough for one person to like.
Just wrote a song today with a buddy of mine, Chris Sly, who was an American Idol finalist.
Yeah.
Okay. So Chris, did the whole American Idol. And in so many people's eyes, they would see, oh my gosh, he was on American Idol. Of course, he's set for life.
Yeah.
Chris is still making his career by doing things himself. Yeah. He makes his own tracks. He writes his own songs. He works with other artists and still sings his butt off and still does all this stuff. But he learned even in an experience like that where you expect they'll do everything for you for the show.
Yes.
But once the show's over,
you're back on,
and
thank
islands. Goodness for him, he knew how to do stuff for himself.
Yeah.
That's why you don't hear from a lot of these people on these shows after the fact, is because
there's still
you don't get a producer for life. You don't get a budget for life. You get to maybe make a song.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it, you better have some other skills to go with it.
Yeah.
So, learning how to record on something, learning how to play an instrument well enough to at least do chord changes, and then just trying to write songs with as many people as you can.
Well, it even goes to what you're doing now with Locash, because spoiler alert, I worked for them as well for a time, and Locash is kind of famous in the sense for bringing different writers out on the road. And I swear, there was a good couple of months there where like every time I walked on the bus, they're recording a demo on their personal MacBook Pro, which you think when you're a nationally touring act, like that's not how it goes. You pull into a town for a little while, you go into a nice studio, you have someone bringing you like wheatgrass juice the whole time.
Yeah.
It's just not how it is.
No,
more than
they're
likely
buying their
you're
own
sweating.
booze and their own wheatgrass. Although I don't think they drink wheatgrass.
It's probably just the booze.
Yeah, and I think that's it. That's a good thing to talk about. I never saw myself being a side guy necessarily whose primary role was playing guitar and singing background vocals. Well, so I'd been in and out of a few opportunities for record deals and was out of one while they were in one, and I had known them. One of the things when I moved to town was I played at a place called the Wild Horse in downtown Nashville.
Pretty historically known here.
Yeah, and so I met Chris and Preston through that. They weren't even Locash at the time; they were hosts of the.
Right, they were like MCs.
Yeah, they brought everybody on, so we got to be buddies, and I'd see them out here and there every couple of years or whatever. And a buddy of mine, Dave White, who used to play guitar for them, was like, man, can you come do this radio show for these guys, Locash? And I was like, oh, I know those guys, And sure, I'll come do it. So we hit it off. This little song called I Love This Life was at like number 40 on the charts, and we did it on the highway. And next thing you know, it just took off like crazy. And it was a humbling but a great opportunity to be able to go, you know what? I don't have to be the star. I can actually just enjoy the things that kind of come with it.
Yeah, totally.
But also make some quality music and learn a lot about this industry. even after being in it for a few years myself, doing a solo career.
Right.
And so that's kind of where I currently am, but it would have never happened. The quick connection on that is my buddy Dave White. Oh, he knew somebody, so that was his in. Well, I didn't know Dave White. I knew him through a bass player, Sean Harrison, who I played with at my local church in Smyrna, Tennessee for a worship band.
Yes.
And so we happened to play. I met Dave one time because Sean said I should, because they were both from West Virginia.
There you go.
Then Dave and I started hanging.
West Virginia brings you back together every time.
I was from regular Virginia, not West Virginia.
No, I know.
I have my teeth. Don't
yes, you have your teeth.
I'm just kidding.
I'm talking about the other family members.
Oh, yeah. So, so Dave and I started writing, and we wrote for 2.5 years before my name ever came up to Locash. So it was songwriting and making a relationship with somebody that built respect over the course of 2.5, 3 years through a relationship that I had already had for 4 or 5 years before that, during my solo artist stuff that I was doing. So, and then the relationship that I had with Chris and Preston from years before their career took off, that they remembered
before they even really started,
because we didn't really keep in touch a bunch. We just kind of see each other at an event, say hey, high fives, whatever. Chris and I saw each other at the gym one time and that sort of thing, but we didn't really keep in contact of any way.
It's just like a mutual work.
We had such a good working relationship for about a year, and so my point is, all these relationships that you make are really how things happen. Yeah. And you can't try to have too many good relationships with people in this town or in any town. And that's where you're going to get your breaks.
Totally.
Your breaks are going to come by you being you. Yeah. Doing what you're best at. Finally getting to a point where you can pour your passions and your talents together or pull them together. Right. That's why we play pool. Right. Yeah, where you can pull them together, and building relationships around that eventually will pay off. Literally a 10-year-old relationship is what got me to working with Locash and touring with them. Never thought they weren't even Locash at the time. I was a solo artist, and they weren't even an act yet. I was getting out of a deal as they were coming up as an act, and I end up playing for them, now. So you never know how anything's going to work. No. I've gotten to do so many cool and different things that where my solo career never allowed me to do some of those things, I've gotten to do in this way. And, my first Opry performance was with Locash. And, once you play the Grand Ole Opry, like, money aside from making money in music and all that stuff, that's the mother church of country music. And for me growing up, my parents would watch Grand Ole Opry and shows and stuff like that. So, that kind of went full circle
for all of us to come see you at the Grand Ole Opry.
And to have your family there. And, before my dad passed last year, he did get to see me at the Grand Ole Opry, and it wasn't maybe the way he envisioned it. I wasn't out front, I wasn't singing the song, but I was still there and still part of what happened. And so it was really kind of cool to see that. So as long as you're passionate and what you do, practice, obviously, never stop getting better, and you're willing to humble yourself to not have to be a certain thing, but at least be your thing within whatever path it takes you in, then you're going to be able to have success in this town or any town. I will say, if you're not good at pool, you probably don't want to go do billiards.
You're not going to be a pool player
as a career.
No, you have to interpret what you're good at.
Know your limitations. That said, doesn't mean I can't still enjoy a game of pool.
No, play pool.
And if you're not a great singer and you're not a great songwriter, you're not a great guitar player, maybe you just do it for fun.
Yeah.
Please do it for fun.
Please do
There's
it. Yeah.
nothing. That's what keeps working musicians alive, is that there's people that love music or maybe want to learn a locash song or a Paulscott song or a cover song that I do or something, just for the sheer joy of music. You don't have to be great at it to enjoy it.
Totally.
And we get together on a weekly basis and enjoy this
Pool game.
wonderful table that's so much better than we are, but the
table is way better than we are.
It gives us, something to talk about, something to do while we're talking about, and sets a background for things that lets us get into some of these better conversations. This has kind of been a look into how I got here. I didn't probably answer every question.
No, but I think you
way.
answered the right question, which is basically just what in the world does it take? I think this is really one of the bigger questions in life, honestly, is what does it take to become a professional? And I think you answered that, which is that it takes a lot of hard work, and it takes a lot of digging your feet into the trenches. Like, just to speak on that for a second, not that I've had the success that you have, but for myself personally, I mean, I have been picking up cameras and going to shoot whatever I could since I was about 10 or 13 years old. Yeah. You and me made my first short film, which was about me being chased by Barney and Freddy Krueger around the house. And ever since that one moment, honestly, watching Nightmare on Elm Street the first time, I knew that I had to be a filmmaker. I knew that there was something that I could relay visually that I could not speak, which is pretty impressive because I genuinely try and speak well most of the time. Doesn't always work, but I give an attempt.
Palatable.
But that leads to me, growing up, having some rough, rebellious teenage years, and then becoming a valet and kind of reconnecting with the filmmaking that's always been inside of me when I saw the billboard for the college that I ended up going to, and I graduated, and because of some of the experiences I had and some of the connections I had over, those years, from me being a 10-year-old, to being a 20-year-old who still had kept that passion, I graduated at the top of my class, and I have worked more in my field than anyone that graduated in that entire year, not just that semester, but in that entire year from that college. So, I mean, I've been able to do some things that I never thought that I was going to be able to do. Like, I thought were total pipe dreams. But what allowed me to do those things was that I never said no. I just worked. And I worked really hard, and I learned my skills.
And I think that continuance of that is great. I think also, one of the things about making the Castle on the Hill video, again, if you're actually still with us through this podcast, thank you so much for hanging out. We don't just do this to hear each other talk. We do this to try and
that a little bit.
Give some, maybe a little bit. We kind of do this to give you the conversations that we would have. And because it's really easy to make a checklist of, what did Paul do? What was his road to getting to Nashville? How did he do all this? He didn't answer everything on the checklist. There are some real answers. There are some just fundamental things that go along with it, but a lot of it is conversation. Yeah. And so that's what we're trying to do here, really, is involve people in the conversation.
Totally.
And you're going to be a part of a conversation as if I was telling him what my story was, kind of thing. So,
and these conversations are how you get places in this business.
Yeah, 100%. I've probably had this same, maybe a shorter version, but this same conversation with a lot of people that I met. Oh, so what's your story? Why are you here? Well, you got a minute? Because I didn't just decide at 15 I wanted to be a country singer and move to Nashville.
No,
which
no
a lot of people, might think that that's how you do it. I took a very long left turn and around back to get here, but in the Castle on the Hill video that we did, and a lot of people, and I, my people, why are you making a music video? You're on tour with Locash. Why are you doing this? Oh, are you going solo? Are you doing this or whatever? I'm not Richie Sambora. I'm not creating a Bon Jovi side project here, but the truth is, I've made videos in my solo career. I've made videos with Locash, and these are videos with budgets. I never made a video just because I wanted to, about a song. And it literally, you'll find out if you watch that video, but the main idea is it was COVID time, and Red and I, you and I were just like, man, let's just go do this. And let's just, and to have complete no agenda over what its purpose or goal or whatever, other than the pure passion project side of it, was really great for me during this time to get back to doing what I love to do. Yeah. And,
and same for me too. I mean, that's really what it felt like.
Yeah, so, I think if we have any buzzwords to take out of here, it's build relationships. Well, how do you build relationships? The first thing that you would want to do is you want to start being active in the communities that you want to be in. You want to be a songwriter? Go to some songwriter nights. Yeah. Talk to the people after the show. Definitely. Hey, how could I learn more about your song? You're not going to go up to them and go, hey, would you like to write sometime? I'm a new guy in town. You don't want to do that. And people make that mistake. Yeah. So you show, and this will always pay off for you. I've seen so many people move into town and go, I'm awesome. Like, you need to come check me out, yada, yada. Let's write. Let's do this.
That almost immediately turns everyone off.
Yeah.
Like, instantly.
If you really want to work with someone, you need to show your interest in them first.
Right.
And I will never, this is probably the last story I share, but my first songwriter round, I really wanted to make this big impression. So I had signed up through BMI to go do a couple songwriter workshops, right? Well, and I met some songwriters there, and they invited me to come do a songwriter round with them. Songwriter round, if you don't know, is basically there's 3 or 4 people up on stage, you go one at a time, do songs, and you just keep going around for about an hour or whatever. So I get up there, and I don't know anybody here. I was also a little musically ignorant, like when we'll talk about influences in another podcast, but like I knew who the artist or the band was or the lead singer or the players or whatever. I didn't get so deep into the CD cover of like who wrote it and I might know who produced it, but I didn't have enough respect for writers. I wasn't aspiring at 16 years old to be a writer at that time.
It's a thankless job.
So I get up there to do this first songwriter route, and I'm the first of all, I come in stacked. I'm like, I'm bringing 3 guitars, and I set them up on this cool stand. I was wearing a cowboy hat at the time because that's what you do when you move to Nashville. Put my cowboy hat, I come in with a cowboy hat, nice pair of boots on. I'm ready to go. I'm gonna rock this joint up, right? And the 2 songwriters I look at on stage are a little bit older. And then there's another one that's a little bit older. And I'm the young guy. I'm like, well, I'm going to be the new young guy in town. I'm gonna tear this up, right?
You have to.
And they all sat down, and I went, they're going to sit down and sing these songs? I was ready to throw the strap on and just like rock these people out, right? And so I was like, all right, I'll sit down a little bit. And then the stories that their songs began to tell just put me out of their league. These were great songwriters that were up there, and I'm doing my little, doo-wop things thinking that they're going to be interested in me because I'm going to sing the crap out of it. I'm going to rock these people's faces and stuff and all of that. And the Nashville songwriting machine just took over and overwhelmed me. And I was so humbled in that first night because they all showed up in their jeans that they had on from doing the lawn earlier that afternoon and just sat down and just simply played songs and had lyrics that just made you weep or get excited about life no matter what it was. Yeah. And I found, and probably one of the best decisions I made that was in that night, where I went over to one guy, and his name was Kelly Shriver. And if you know music in Nashville, Kelly Shriver is an amazing writer, an amazing singer. And I didn't know him when he was on the stage. He was one of the guests of the other songwriters. I didn't have enough respect for who he was to know. And but I did one thing right. And that was I went up to him and I said, "You know what? Your songs tonight taught me more about who I want to be than pretty much anything I've done." And I said, "I would love to learn more about your songs." And he actually ended up being someone that I got to write with, along with Jason Bloom, and we wrote a song, couple songs, and that were on some of my solo stuff, and it was so cool because had I not done that round, or if I'd have walked out of there thinking about myself,
right,
and hoping that one of them was going to call me up someday, because I had rocked people's faces off.
Yeah.
I decided to put myself out of the equation and just say, you moved me with what you did. You're awesome at what you do.
Right.
And became a champion of what they were doing. That opened the door. Yeah. And I think when you're building these relationships with people, when you're trying to move into towns and stuff, become a fan of other people. Yeah. You're always going to be a fan of yourself.
Yep.
So go be a fan.
Someone has to be.
Yeah, exactly. So go be a fan of someone else, and when you start to be a fan of someone else and invest in others, then they will invest back in you.
It's true.
And when they invest back in you, then that's where the other opportunities grow. It's where you meet their other people that are maybe higher up here.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, if you're practicing on top of, trying to invest in other people, you're actually investing in yourself.
Right. Well, and to speak on that point just for a second, just because this is a quick anecdote, not that I have ever, I'll come to this microphone. Not that I have ever really tried to be a musician necessarily, like professionally, but I have played in professional capacities, and I'll tell you, all the people that I have come to know, like in a professional way, have totally just been from me like BSing with these people after other shows that they've done. Yeah. Me genuinely appreciating what they did, and they were like, "Oh, this kid might not know anything, but he's cool. He's cool enough to talk to us and to like kind of be interested in the process." And that led to, me going all through high school, knowing all these different people, and then one night I go to the Exit Inn randomly, and I know the dude who's about to go play the Exit Inn, which is a pretty historic venue here in Nashville. So I mean, that's the way it works. I might be a filmmaker. I don't even know music people necessarily. Yeah. But I knew this little group that locally I was a fan of and had some respect for. And that transitioned into me being, in a couple of different environments where it was really cool to just be like, this is neat. I know these people, like they're on this stage and I got to be their friends, and that's kind of how it works. If you are friends with the local talent that is going to make it big, generally they're going to take you with them. That just seems to be how it works.
Yeah. So, I mean, wrapping this up here today, we hope that we've given you some good advice on what it's like to do music or film or whatever your interest is in your town. Obviously, continue to educate yourself, right? And learn some talents. Learn what you're good at and what you're not good at. Red and I have definitely learned that we have not gotten any better at pool. We're not very good at pool, but we're gonna appreciate those who do it and that sort of thing. Man, this has been fun today.
Yeah.
I hope that people have learned something. If you have other questions you'd like to know, put those in the comments below, and we'll get your comments. Help us make what the next show is. You can put whatever you want down there as long as it's nice. Just don't be mean, or you can be mean. I don't care. And we'll be hitting some. We have got some special guests lined up.
Yes.
That are going to be probably taking your mic. Sorry.
That's okay. I can click buttons for a little while.
Special guests lined up for the next few that we're going to put out. Some other people that are friends of mine in the music industry are going to join the Paulcast and have a little bit more fun. We're trying to figure out if they're going to come join us to play pool or if we're going to go to them. We don't know. You'll just have to wait and see where the location will be and who those are, but we'll let you know about all that. I've had a good time today.
Yeah, me too.
Coffee's been great. Probably my favorite coffee we've had so far.
It's definitely the best quality coffee.
Best quality coffee. So way better than our game of pool. Once again, we have talked through an entire podcast and not completed a game. That is going to be our goal for the next one that you and I do, is that we will finish a game.
You say that.
I say that. Although I did win one, didn't I? Because you scratched or something. I don't know. Anyway, if you enjoyed today, let us know by doing all the standard stuff of liking and subscribing and sharing. And more than that, I mean, that's awesome. But just comment below, because that's how we share this conversation with you. It'll get all the other stuff will happen, I'm sure, as it needs to. But comment away. Let us know what you want to hear, what you don't want to hear. If you want us to shut up. Yeah,
we could have a mime podcast.
We could have a mime. I promise we'll get more interesting. Well, maybe not, but I promise that we'll at least get funnier looking to you the more that you watch.
The more that we age, for sure.
Yes, I feel like I've aged like 5 years after this one. No, I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're gonna bring a podcast to you real soon. Thank you for watching this one today. I'm Paul. This is Red. Paulcast out. Your go, I think, right?